Surprise! It has been forever since we have been with you guys, but we are back. It's your guys from the Fantasy Podcast right here, as always, brought to you by rotoballer.com. That is right, rotoballer.com. Swing on over to rotoballer.com today. Sign up for the premium pass with promo code WooFantasy to get you all the great goodness from rotoballer.com with discount. Go to sign up today, rotoballer.com. Here we are yet again. We've been away for a minute. I've almost forgotten how to do this since
judging by how long it took you to get everything up. Yeah, you actually
get everything
really
up, ramped, and ready. But here we are yet again, joined by the co-host, Mr. Nick Heffley. How are we doing there, sir? Fresh off of
I'll tell you here
World
in
Series
about
ring acquiring.
I should have got it and put it on. We'll save that for the next podcast.
There you go.
No, I'll tell you here in about 2 picks once the Bears pick.
So yeah, here we are. We'll set the table. Here we are. It's night 2 NFL draft. Night 1 out of the way, as previously mentioned. Nick on the edge of his seat for the Bears pick here. In the next couple of picks, we've got the Falcons on the board here now.
It's got to be Malik Willis, right?
I wouldn't
or running back. I mean, really, they need everything. I mean,
wouldn't necessarily go that far.
What are they doing trading up? They need to trade back like 10 times to get multiple picks.
That would be, I mean, with them moving up ahead of the Seahawks here in the next couple of picks, I would venture to say that it's going to be a quarterback because the Seahawks are also rumored to be going quarterback as well. So, I mean, that's what I would lean right now. But do they pull the trigger on Malik Willis? That's going to be the question.
That's also a question. There it is.
Malik Willis sliding into the second round of the NFL draft was widely.
Malik Willis, do you go? I mean, Desmond Ridder had a high grade on a lot of people's boards. You got Matt Corral and Sam Howell.
Yeah, Corral, I think, was probably more prototypical of the type of guy that they would want in Atlanta. I think that's what I was feeling going into the draft process. I think he was a guy that they were kind of targeting a little bit more. They didn't have a clue that Malik Willis would be available here, 6 picks into round 2. Like I previously mentioned, Malik Willis falling into round 2. We only had one quarterback come off the board in round 1 last night, and that was Kenny Pickett, pick 20 to the Steelers. So while we're on the topic, how are you feeling about Kenny Pickett to the Steelers from a fantasy perspective, competing against your boy,
competing against
Mitch Trubisky in year 1?
Hold on. Pick us up here.
See what we got for the Falcons.
It is, yeah.
That is not the case.
It is not who we thought that it was going to be.
No, that is not the case. Atlanta Falcons trade up to get the edge pass rusher from Penn State.
Okay.
Arnold Ebiketie.
Yeah, that
is
guy.
What we're going to Ebiketie. So,
okay.
Trying to beef up the defensive side of the ball. What are we feeling?
Yeah,
seems like a fail to me.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to trade up, I mean, you need somebody here. I mean, you need a quarterback. I mean, yeah, I don't know that I necessarily get that pick there.
I do not either.
What do you think about that pick?
I mean, it's like you mentioned a few minutes ago. The Falcons kind of have a need everywhere, both sides of the ball.
Right.
I mean, kind of the same thought process as what we saw in night 1. There might have been a little bit of reaching in certain areas, but it just depends on how guys are valued on teams' boards.
Well, this is what I was actually gonna do. I'm on here on walterfootball.com looking up the quarterback class for next year, and yeah, actually, with who I'm seeing next year, you got C.J. Stroud, Up here, you have got Bryce Young is number 2 on their quarterback board. Anthony Richardson
No.
out of Florida is ranked 5 on their board. So I mean, you've got some quarterbacks next year.
Well, next year it's a
are
two horse race next year. Let's be flat out honest about that. It's going to
sure,
be
but
CJ Stroud and Bryce Young.
yeah, but I'm just saying my point is, I mean the Falcons would be one of the worst teams in the league.
Sure.
You know,
It's kind of the same
you have to,
situation.
you do have to think about that.
Well, it's a similar situation like you're going to see, as things stand right now with Seattle, as things stand right now with, say, Carolina. You're going to play the string out this year, and if you need to go back and jump into the quarterback pool next year, I mean, Lord knows you're gonna have that availability because you're looking at some of the teams that are just not good, and even with the moves that they can make in the draft this weekend, it's not going to improve them to a point to where they're going to immediately be contenders and set for the next couple of years.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I think the Panthers could be the Panthers. I think the Panthers are kind of like the Broncos in that, the Broncos got themselves a quarterback, and they're going to be. I think they're going to be winning the AFC. The Panthers have the type of team that could very well compete in the NFC with a quarterback. But let's face it, Sam Darnold's not going to be that guy.
That's our first bold statement of 2022. The Broncos are going to win the AFC.
That is correct.
I've already tabbed the Chargers, same division. I think the Chargers are actually going to be the team to beat when when all's said and done, we get to the season. The moves that they've made, and even last night, they jump in, get another offensive lineman to protect Justin Herbert, and kind of really they've made the moves, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think the Chargers are really kind of the team that we're looking at there. I think will wind up being the cream of the crop.
Yeah,
for the AFC West this next year. But waiting on the Bears pick, we'll go a little bit back and forth here during the course of what we're doing here with the show, going back into last night. Winners and losers last night. It was
no, you can't go. We can't go winners losers right now. My Bears are getting ready to pick.
Well, bear with me as the Bears pick is in. We're waiting for the commercial break to come back from. So, what say you? Bears pick on the board right now. We'll come back, jump back into some of the fantasy talk. Is it George Pickens here? That's the one we've talked about.
Absolutely want George Pickens here. We are razor thin at the wide receiver position. The only other position that I could possibly, really we need anything on defense. We've lost a lot there. David Ajabo would be okay if we go on the defensive side of the ball there. But if we there's not too much we don't need. Let's put it like that. I could go Bernard Raymond, the tackle out of Central Michigan. I don't know that there's necessarily an interior lineman that I would want to take at this spot here. So, Pickens is one of those guys I think could be a difference maker. He's taller in comparison to what the Bears have right now, especially, Byron Pringle's not an actual option.
What are you talking about? Byron Pringle, the savior from Kansas City, who's already been arrested for reckless driving without a license.
Yeah, he'll be suspended like a game. What's up, Matt Forte?
We have Matt Forte, the New York Jets legend, Matt Forte.
Kyler Gordon. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. I know that Washington always seems to produce a lot of good corners that come into the league.
Yeah. He was the corner that's playing opposite Trent McDuffie that we saw get drafted night 1 last night. So.
Speaking of which, that is the pick that won your boy our little pick contest last night. I can't actually claim that I meant for him to go to Kansas City because I think that pick was originally owned. I think it was the Ravens there, but I think I won that bad boy handily last night.
Yes, yeah, it was. I think that, like I mentioned a second ago, the 9 trades that we saw on night one really kind of threw a lot of wrenches into things when it comes to who potential mock drafts. I think the grenades blew up a
Yeah.
lot of mock drafts last night with the trades and things like that. So we'll delve into that a little bit, just to kind of recap, talk about fantasy perspective, things like that. When you have to start in Atlanta, where your hometown is. The Falcons going first wide receiver off the board, Drake London. He was the first skill position player off the board
Correct.
in the 2022 draft. So, how are you feeling, Drake London in Atlanta? They don't. I mean, let's be point blank and honest. They didn't have a receiver to speak of heading into the draft. So everyone knew that was going to be a target for this team. Calvin Ridley suspended for the year because he decided to get a little handsy on the phone, placing bets while he was away from the team for mental breakdown issues. So now you have Drake London there.
If and when he will ever come back.
Exactly. And that was something else too. That was another trade that was in the works prior to that getting broken down. The Philadelphia Eagles had a trade in place for Calvin Ridley and decided to pull the deal off the table, even after they heard the news that he was going to get they decided to be fair about it, was the report that came out. They didn't feel that it would be in good nature for them to pull that trade knowing that Calvin Ridley was going to get suspended. So
I wouldn't have said crap. That's on the other team for not doing their homework if they don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, so Falcons off to a good start in the offseason is what it sounds like. But like I mentioned, here we are. Drake London, fantasy perspective.
So I think to be honest, I think the receiver that went to the Falcons, to me, whoever that was going to be, and it wound up being Drake London, is going to be the top receiver in this class. It's just sheerly because of who he has around him. I mean, you got Pitts, and that's it. I mean, you're looking at Garrett Wilson. You got Corey Davis to be able to share targets with. You got Elijah Moore coming back. Lave's got. I mean, you got Kamara that he's going to be getting dump offs left and right. I mean, who knows what Michael Thomas is going to be? If Thomas is out, Olave could be that guy. Jameson Williams is going to be hurt for a little bit. John Dotson is going to be competing for receptions. Drake London's that one guy who, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, he's got a clear path to receptions there. So, I mean, I see him. Yeah, I think he's going to be the top receiver of this class.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close with Drake London. I mean, the one caveat and the takeaway I got is really from night one of the draft, and a lot of the landing spots for these receivers is they're going to a lot of places where quarterback play is just subpar. I mean, let's be point blank and honest. Marcus Mariota for the Falcons coming in kind of technically on a bridge type deal for the Falcons to move to their next quarterback. We've seen it before with Marcus Mariota in Tennessee, that the accuracy has just been not great for Marcus Mariota. So who's to say that he's going to be a guy that can really get the ball to Drake London with consistency? And that was something too, like as I was going through a lot of the work heading into the draft, like Drake London was primarily a left side of the formation wide receiver at USC. Rarely ever moved over to the right side of the ball, the formation, catching passes, any type of routes run from the right side of the field. That's going to be something that's going to be tricky, I think, with him, is if he stays left side of the field, Marcus Mariota, right-handed quarterback, battles with inconsistency from a passing perspective. It's going to be hard to get the ball to him adequately, especially in 2022 from a fantasy perspective. So targets are going to be there, but you're going to see this a lot with these guys coming off the board in round one here. Up and down, inconsistency. Yeah, that's going to be the name of the game for these wide receivers, I think, in year one. Drake London, from a dynasty perspective, Yeah, great, all for it, because I
Um,
think that's going to be a big move moving forward when they get their next quarterback. So
yeah,
for
I'm gonna
me,
go. I'm gonna disagree.
yeah,
I'm gonna disagree.
I don't see
Um,
anything more than a wide receiver 3 out of Drake London year
you're
one.
talking. Um, yeah, no. I think draft spot. Yeah, I mean, I think he's gonna. I think he's a top 30 guy. I mean, yeah, wide receiver 3. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah,
But I mean, you make it sound like he's going to be like, 700 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns. I mean, I think his production is going to be way more than that. I mean, granted, I don't trust Marcus Mariota either, but
right.
at the same time, I mean, if Marcus Mariota throws for 200 yards a game, which is crazy low, I mean, who's he got the ball? Who's he got to throw the ball to? I mean, somebody's going to catch for 60, 70, 80 yards. You know, might as
Right.
well be London. I don't know who the hell else is going to catch the ball outside of Pitts.
Yeah, I mean that's what you're looking at. It's going to be the Kyle Pitts and Drake London show in year one, and I think the way that I've been looking at it, I think Kyle Pitts is really going to be the main focal point of the passing attack, kind of like what we saw similar to last year with Mark Andrews in Baltimore. I mean, you're going to see a lot of the work go through Kyle Pitts, I think, and then we're going to get down that kind of red zone, you know, situation for the Falcons, and I think that's where you're going to see both Drake London and Kyle Pitts excel. That's going to be their go-to. How often can the Falcons'
Oh
offense
no!
get down there to the red zone? Would be the next question. Oh, here we go. Just off the board, Kenneth Walker to the Seattle Seahawks.
Right when I was thinking I was looking good with some of my Rashad Penny dynasty stuff.
Well, that tells you exactly what you need to know about how the Seahawks view Rashad Penny and his ability to stay healthy.
Or the fact that he has just one more year left on his contract.
Also true. And Chris Carson likely not going to be coming back was a report I saw the other day.
Yes.
Still issue with the neck. I mean, Travis Homer still on the roster. And if you want to go by the narrative that we always see in camp summertime on Twitter, Travis Homer throwing a picture on Twitter, I believe last week, where he was just absolutely yoked in the gym. So if you want to go by gym narrative, Travis Homer on the way up. So Kenneth Walker. So here we are. We're in round 2. We finally had 2 running backs come off the board. We have Breece Hall to the Jets.
And neither exactly great destinations for year one.
I will disagree.
Outside of, I mean, I think Breece Hall, I don't really think it mattered necessarily landing spot for him. Yeah. But I would think that is a little cause for concern with Michael Carter there, and that he is. I mean, Carter's going to mix in. I mean, I think Breece Hall should be a 3-down back, but yeah. I mean, I would have loved for somebody to have gone to, the Falcons or the Texans when you feel like those guys would come in and immediately start and immediately be given all the work, and that's just not the case.
I actually will disagree. I think Breece Hall will come in and be the automatic starter for the Jets at running back. Michael Carter kind of slides back into that 3rd down receiving back role that he's probably a little bit more comfortable with.
You just said what I said.
Well, I mean, yeah,
3rd down, 3-down back, but I think you're seeing both of them be in the ball game at the same time. Then
there will be certain formations they'll slide them in like that. But I think Breece Hall is probably going to take a lion's share of the work there in that backfield. You're probably going to be looking at similar split. I would be willing to bet a similar split to what we're going to see out of Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams now this year. After Melvin Gordon comes back, you're going to see more. You're going to probably see more of that Breece Hall get about 60% of the workload in that backfield. Michael Carter getting anywhere from 35 to 40% of the workload touches, I think, is what I feel right now.
I mean, I'm just saying, I think there's better fantasy destinations for these guys to be able to go to.
But haven't we seen that with these running backs the last few years in the draft? A lot of these guys are landing in spots that are just not fantasy friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cutting their potential. I mean, look at our boy Javonte. I mean, the type of year he would have had if he would have been just given the load, or especially now if they hadn't re-signed Gordon. I mean, he would be easily first rounder, and he's not going to go first round. So
Right. Yeah.
here, I'll be right back. Keep going.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's what we're talking about there. Brees Hall, I think, obviously, I'm liking him as an RB2, even a redraft right now. Dynasty wise, I think he's moving easily up to the 1-1 from a dynasty rookie draft perspective. I like him as the top overall pick in rookie drafts now based on that landing spot. Going into the draft, I had it as a toss-up between he and Garrett Wilson. Oddly enough, landing on the same team between the two. So now I think I've got Brees Hall easily ahead of Garrett Wilson, reshuffling probably the top 5 when it comes to my rookie rankings after the draft is completed, and I'll have those sent in over to rotoballer.com, so be on the lookout for those as well. But speaking of the pick that just came off the board with Kenneth Walker going to the Seattle Seahawks, just touching base on that real quick. Don't love the fit. We just mentioned that. You know, you got Rashad Penny, who was just a beast coming down the stretch last year for the Seahawks, where he was getting a majority of the work. A lot of people were excited about Rashad Penny, that he was going to get the lion's share of the work headed into 2022. Now we see that that is not the case. I mean, they're just not going to really. I mean, Pete Carroll's offense is not, with healthy running backs in that backfield, they're just not going to give the ball to one specific running back. They're going to mix and match these guys in and out. And like I mentioned, Rashad Penny has not really been the mirror of health when it comes to being on the field during the course of his career. That's really kind of cut into his potential to this point in his career. If you followed me long enough, you know that I've lived and died on the Rashad Penny hill over the past few years. I was very, very high on him coming out of college, especially going to the Seahawks at the time. Felt like that was a great landing spot. He just has not been able to stay healthy. So now you've got Kenneth Walker in that backfield with Rashad Penny. Like I said, you're looking at Chris Carson likely phased out of this backfield due to health situations, probably going to get cut. That is going to be a headache of a split there. And now you're going to be putting yourself in a position of where you kind of, if Rashad Penny does get hurt, Kenneth Walker winds up being a guy that you can grab kind of later on in the draft right now, especially in redraft. Will be a guy that you can get later on in the draft, could wind up panning out big time for you later on in the year. So, yeah, that's something we saw a lot last year with guys and gals that were in fantasy championships and really kind of making a run towards the title. Is a lot of the rosters that were built around wide receivers, receptions, great quarterback play, and really kind of did more of that zero RB type strategy that we really don't love here with the Woo Fantasy Podcast, but it paid dividends last year. I mean, we saw a lot of injuries, a lot of running backs missing time, a lot of what guys picked up off the waiver wire that maybe not be household names, but they paid off big time when it came down to when it mattered most, and that's fantasy playoff time and title runs. That's you saw a lot of that last year. That's something you see year in and year out. So Kenneth Walker could be that type of guy yet again that we're going to see going into 2022. From a dynasty perspective with Kenneth Walker, I think you're looking at a guy, you probably can slide him into the mix of being right there on the cusp of that 5 to 7 range in a rookie draft. Yeah, you're not going to get paid off big time in year one, like I just mentioned. But as Nick just mentioned just a minute ago as well, you've got Rashad Penny on last year of his rookie deal. Could be on the outs away from this team. And if that's the case, Kenneth Walker slides right into a nice situation as the lead running back for the Seattle Seahawks as early as 2023. So do I like Kenneth Walker? But I mean, I preferred Isaiah Spiller, and that's going to be something that's going to be something to see here as we round out round 2 and get into round 3. I think Isaiah Spiller's landing spot is going to be a very, very intriguing one. He could be the running back that the Buffalo Bills land on. Like a lot of people were hoping Brees Hall would have landed with the Bills there late in round 1, but he did not. I think Isaiah Spiller might be a name to watch out for the Bills with a potential landing spot there. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on as we round out round 2 here.
What do you think? Another Spiller in a Bills uniform?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I was kind of just mentioning as we're talking about running backs here. So, just to get your take on it, kind of brush off the topic. Brees Hall 1-1 in a rookie draft right now, based on landing spot, or do you like one of the wide receivers over him?
You said in a dynasty?
Yeah, rookie draft as things stand right now.
I would. Yeah, I mean, I'm always about selecting it didn't matter. Yeah, there's really no matter for a wide receiver. For me, I mean, the like even last year, Jamar Chase. I mean, I would still be going running back. So yeah, Brees Hall would easily be the one for me.
Yeah, that's what, like I was mentioning while you're away. I had Garrett Wilson as my one headed into the draft. Now Brees Hall's landing spot, I've got him. I vaulted him. I'll have him ahead as a 1-1 in the draft for a rookie draft right now. So Kenneth Walker, though, where are you comfortable taking him based on the landing spot, redraft wise, dynasty wise? What's your initial take with Kenneth Walker in Seattle?
I mean, a little bit more so. You know, I feel like Brees Hall is gonna be the guy, but with some Michael Carter mixed in, I I feel like Rashad Penny is gonna be the guy. I mean, look at what he did last year. I mean, I think it's a little bit more than one of those situations that Walker's gonna be kind of mixed in, kind of a thing. I don't know that I just love Kenneth Walker's landing spot there.
Yeah,
So
that's kind of.
I mean, I'd probably say 6 to 7 or so. I mean, there's probably even guys that haven't been drafted yet that I would say I would probably take ahead of Kenneth Walker and kind of where he's going to go. Also, too, not really knowing what the quarterback situation there is going to be either. I mean, I would venture to say I would probably have Isaiah Spiller and James Cook probably both ahead of Kenneth Walker. Depending on landing spot again. So, but
yeah, I mean that's kind of a spot where there's been a lot of rumor headed into night 2 that we might see a potential landing spot for Baker Mayfield. You know, they got Drew Lock as the quarterback now after the Russell Wilson trade.
Mm-hmm.
Not a great situation there, like you mentioned, from a quarterback perspective. But that never stops Pete Carroll and that offense from trying to run the ball down your throat 900 times a game. That's just their offense. That's what they love to do. But wow, Wan'Dale Robinson coming off the board, wide receiver out of Kentucky coming off the board to the New York Giants just now.
It's kind of like the Giants just don't know how to draft. I mean, granted, I love fantasy football and skill position guys, but
new front office.
You can't just keep getting. Yeah, but you still got. Dude,
Kadarius Toney likely on the way out. They've talked about trying to trade him and get rid of him after 1 year.
Okay, unless you, that
move tells me that they're going to get rid of Toney. That move right there tells me that.
I would probably say that would in all likelihood be the case. But
right,
yeah. I think you need some linemen there on both sides of the ball. I think you need some DBs there. I think you have bigger needs. I would get a quarterback. I mean, I would take a chance on somebody before I went on yet another wide receiver who you don't even have a quarterback that can get him the ball.
He's a gadget guy. Let's be honest. This is a player that I think this is where you see the separation between NFL to fantasy Twitter is that Wan'Dale Robinson's a guy, if you kind of read the tea leaves heading into the draft, was starting to kind of move up boards. Teams around the NFL liked him and what he could do, what he brings to the game. But look, from a fantasy perspective, even if you dive into the film and you kind of really, I mean, he's an SEC guy, so I mean we're familiar with him. I don't think that he's got the chops to be a second round pick. That's going to be a guy that you're going to want to spend roster space on. That he's never going to be a guy that's going to be a starter on your team week in and week out when it comes to fantasy. Is he good to mix in and out of formations and trick plays here and there and stuff like that? Sure, probably so. Rondale Moore last year, same situation. This is kind of the same guy, same build, same type of offensive skill set. Rondale Moore was probably a little bit more polished as a receiver prospect coming out than Wan'Dale Robinson here. But, I mean, I think that's what you're going to look at here with Brian Daboll. He's got a plan in place, and he's probably looking at Wan'Dale Robinson as a guy that he can develop certain packages for on that offense.
Yeah.
Now with Daniel Jones still as the quarterback.
I don't.
I think that's a pick that the Giants could have. The Giants could have made that pick in round 2 or round 3. I mean,
yeah. I mean, all the times they traded back. I mean, they could have waited quite a while for that pick. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, I don't know many round 2 wide receivers that I would not even have on a draft board come draft time. But I can tell you, I will not have Wan'Dale Robinson on my draft board.
No, I mean he's worth a shot in Dynasty, but there's no redraft appeal there whatsoever in 2022.
I can tell you he would probably be at best a 3rd round pick in a Dynasty draft for me.
Sure, yeah, I could see that.
We have the Texans moving way up for somebody, perhaps a skill position guy.
I mean, they need a receiver. Let's be honest. I think they need a receiver to kind of mix in with that group. Nico Collins, Brandon Cooks. I think there's a need there.
I mean, they have. I don't know where on their team they don't have a need for somebody.
Well, here's the kicker: is because there's been a lot of scuttlebutt.
You said they're getting a kicker. What?
No, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. No, there's been some conjecture out there, some rumor headed in, is that if the right situation presented itself, the Texans might go quarterback in this draft.
I mean, they could. I mean, Davis Mills is not 100% the answer.
He is not. That is true. So I was looking at my rookie rankings heading into the draft, and as we were discussing it and talking about the Wan'Dale Robinson pick, 33rd overall in my rookie rankings heading into the draft. So late 3rd round pick, like what we were just discussing. I don't think that's going to change any way, shape, or form with this landing spot with the New York Giants. So that's a tough one. So waiting on the Texans pick here. Get back into touching on a little bit of round 1. We talked about Drake London. Receivers after Drake London, you had Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, of course, Jameson Williams. Lions trading up from 32 to 12 to get Jameson Williams, which was probably one of the first shockers of the night for me.
Pick is coming in here on my end anyway.
Yeah, I'm seeing pick coming in as well.
I'll wait just a sec till you see it.
Yeah, I got Goodell coming to the podium here.
Okay.
That I'm watching off to the side.
You're good 15 seconds behind me here.
But I've got the draft tracker up that I'm keeping track of too. I see the pick.
Okay. No, I mean Mechie's. I mean, it's a great spot for him. I mean, I think he's kind of reminds you a little bit of Brandon Cooks, maybe a little bit. I mean, similar build. You know, smaller guy. I mean, guy that's going to go over the middle. I think that's a good. I think it's a good pick.
Yeah, I liked Mechie, but then he's kind of just mixed in with this class that is really, really deep. I mean, we have not talked about Justin Ross either. Justin Ross was a guy that he come out 2 years ago.
Oh, he's
before the injury. Yeah, he's a round 1 guy. So we're looking at a lot of potential. Like you mentioned, looking 5'11", 189.
Interesting. Apparently the port is reporting that the Texans moved up to get John Mechie ahead of the Ravens.
Ahead of the Ravens, who will need a wide receiver after the Hollywood Brown trade last night that I informed Mr. Heffley of at his company
soiree.
Event.
That's right.
his soiree. So while we're on the topic, Hollywood Brown to the Cardinals. was the first big trade of the night last night. How are you feeling
Right.
about that potential move?
I do kind of
You're
hate
always
that
been you've
as
always been a
a,
big Hollywood guy.
actually I have not. He is my love for him is more due to situation and circumstance and where he's going in drafts. I mean, he was getting hyped up like crazy a couple of years ago. And I didn't like it. And last year the value came down, and I thought it was a good opportunity spot for him, and it 100% was. I don't necessarily love the landing spot for him. I mean, he is getting back with his boy Kyler Murray there, so. But you do have DeAndre Hopkins who did have a down year this last year. AJ Green's there, who I mean, obviously he's coming down a bit. Rondell Moore, is a guy who you liked. I didn't necessarily like this last year, so I mean, he could be a second option. I mean, obviously you see a little bit of an uptick, I think, in volume. I mean, there's games last year that Marquise Brown just disappeared because they weren't throwing the ball. So, I mean, I like him. I think his stock is going to improve this year. I think he's going to have higher numbers. I don't think he's going to skyrocket and be a number one, but in terms of draft position, maybe a uh, late wide receiver two, but I would be a lot more comfortable early number three is about where I'm
Yeah,
probably going to have him ranked.
that's kind of what I tweeted out last night after the move was made. I feel like that Hollywood Brown that puts him in more of a position that he should be in and be comfortable with as a team's wide receiver two. Not trying to shoulder the load as the wide receiver one. But the best part about that deal, I think, is we're going to see the bounce back year from DeAndre Hopkins now. Field opens up big time because you have to respect Hollywood Brown and that ability to get down the field, and break the top off of a defense. I think that opens the whole route tree back open for DeAndre Hopkins. Now, whether or not Kyler Murray can be the quarterback that can get him the ball consistently, whether it's short, intermediate, or long, that's the thing that remains to be seen. Can DeAndre Hopkins get into the end zone enough with Kyler Murray at quarterback? That's going to be the thing to watch for there. So now I like what they're trying to put together there. They've got it. It's kind of the smart coaching decision, smart front office situation. Get those weapons around Kyler, see what you got out of him before you really put the foot down and pay this man. You need to see if he's going to be that guy that you're going to have because similar situation to Carolina in a weird way is that Arizona needs to show that they can win in advance, or you're going to see both Kingsbury and Kyler probably gone sooner rather than later. So I think this is going to be a make or break year for that offense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have had there's been a lot of injuries in Arizona.
Yes.
For those guys. So I mean, I think that's something that you got to take in effect. But I mean, in this day and age in the NFL, I mean that's something that you can only hang your hat on for so long.
Right. And the Ravens taking David Ajabo, that just feels like an absolute Ravens pick.
That's a Ravens pick.
That's just, I mean, as a guy that's quality pick, should have been a guy that was kind of towards the end of round one, is what his value technically was, and here they are getting him 13 picks in a round two. Ravens winning again.
I would have loved him to fall to the Bears, but very very solid selection by the Ravens. I had Ajabo going at toward the end of round one. Yesterday. So yeah, I mean the fact that they're getting him here, that's a steal.
Yep. So did I.
So going back to your earlier question before we got off on these last picks here. You were asking who's going to be the guy behind London. I would actually venture to say Traylon Burks would probably be, at least in a redraft, it would be my guy.
Right.
Here, I mean, it's the tough thing to say is more in a dynasty, because these wide receivers that did land with these teams don't we're not getting a Jamar Chase who's going to be with Joe Burrow for a while. I mean,
right.
you got Jahan Dotson who the heck's going to be the Commanders' quarterback for a while. I mean, Tannehill, I don't think is going to be the guy forever there. With the Titans, who the hell? Oh wow,
Yeah,
Keegan Michael Peel.
You're nailing the head, nail right on the head when it comes to the narrative when it comes to a lot of these rookie wide receivers. And I prefaced that earlier on in this show is that the landing spot is just not great because you mentioned it, Falcons, Mariota. There's got to be another quarterback for London after Mariota. Jets, you have to figure Zach Wilson's going to be the guy there for at least
he's probably the best landing spot really out of those. So I mean, I would say in a true dynasty term, looking long term potential. I mean, he's probably the best guy along with Jameson Williams because again, I mean, you would figure the Lions. Yeah, I mean I mean, really truly looking at a dynasty type perspective, I would.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Jameson Williams. I think that's going to be a situation where talent probably can overcome what's around him. But, I mean, that's Jared Goff as a quarterback there. Will he be the quarterback here in the next couple of years?
No.
Who's to say? Same thing as Olave and the Saints. Jameis going to be there after this year? Who's to say? I mean, that's what we're looking at. It's going to be hard to project these guys, especially from a redraft perspective. I mean, looking at it from even a dynasty perspective too, is because their values are going to be so wildly different, based from this year to next because of quarterback situation.
Yeah, so, this is where I love dynasty is you got to project the teams, you got to project the guys that are going to be there,
right? You
got to project future quarterback. Like it's crazy how much stuff you got to project on some of this stuff. So it's kind of fun in that regard. I mean, London has no competition right there. That's what I'm looking at. Garrett Wilson's going to have Elijah Moore there. And I mean, could that be a good thing and they'd be a good 1-2 punch? Sure. Could that be a situation to where one takes targets away from the other? Absolutely. You just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen in that regard. But a guy like Treylon Burks this year, I mean, who the heck do the Titans have to be able to catch the ball? The hyphenated name guy. I don't even.
Robert Woods. Okay, Robert Woods in the trade from the Rams.
I was like hyphenated guy. Nick Westbrook-Akina.
Yeah, Westbrook-Akina. I mean, you got Des Fitzpatrick that I was a little bit high on last year, but he's a project that's really kind of got to build there.
Yeah,
similar situation. The Titans don't have a tight end. That's going to be something that they're going to probably look at here in the draft as well.
They signed Austin. They did sign Austin Hooper.
They got Austin Hooper, but which Austin Hooper are you getting?
They got your Falcons former boy Jeff Swaim.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, let's be honest here. That's not much to shake a stick at.
You're being awfully honest tonight, B.
Yeah, no, I mean that's just kind of have to be when you're going through the draft and trying to project some of these guys out and looking at rosters moving forward. You can't beat around the bush. You really have to kind of get down on the nuts and bolts of things. So
I'll say this though. I mean, in terms of this year, London first for me, Burke second. I would probably put Christian Watson third. With him going to the Packers, I think that is an ideal landing spot for this year. I would say that is a very nice spot for him. I would put him third for this year alone in redraft.
Yeah, let's check out where I'm looking at things right now. I've got Watson headed into the draft. He was 12th on my board overall. Was 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. He was the 8th wide receiver in my rankings headed in. So I think he's obviously going to be vaulting some guys at this point based on landing spot, like you mentioned.
Sure. I mean, you bought Jameson Williams just because, I mean, he's probably going to be out a good amount of the year.
Yeah, but when you're looking at it, but it just depends. Like I mentioned a second ago, it just depends on which way we're talking. Redraft dynasty.
Yeah, exactly. I'm talking right now. I'm talking redraft.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously you're going to take Watson ahead of Williams right now because Williams probably a prime candidate to land on the pup this first 6 weeks of the year. That's what I would look at with Williams. And then even when Williams comes back, I mean, it's going to be kind of a similar situation to Rashad Bateman last year. Coming into that offense, took a while to really knock the rust off after he got injured in camp. now you've got Williams coming into that offense with so many mouths to feed all of a sudden. DJ Shark, Amon-Ra St. Brown, TJ Hawkinson, Josh Reynolds to a degree, if you want to go that route, even further down the board. But like I mentioned, Quintez Cephas is coming back from injury, and that was a guy that I'd even forgotten about. Good Lord!
I had him and I was starting him. He had a good little streak going for a couple weeks there, and then
beginning of the year, he was a top 24 wide receiver last year until he got injured. So that's another guy that you've got coming into the fold too. That's what made that trade up by the Lions so much of a head scratcher for me.
But I don't think any of those receivers, St. Brown or Shark included, has the potential of what Jameson Williams has.
True. No, I'll give you that because Jameson Williams really has that upside of a Garrett Wilson, of a Devontae Smith last year, as he can be your bona fide wide receiver one when he's healthy. But again, I mean, you do not have your quarterback in place that's going to be the guy that's going to help Jameson Williams excel and move up to that upper echelon receiver in the league right now. So that's the kicker there. But talking about trades, talking about Treylon Burks, you have to touch on the A.J. Brown deal that made Treylon Burks happen for the Tennessee Titans. So now A.J. Brown of the Eagles caught me by surprise last night. Obviously, I know A.J. Brown was.
I don't know that anybody would have thought that. I mean, even after Robinson said that he wasn't going to do that.
And then he had even become a malcontent, if you kind of really look deeper into things, is that they knew he was going to be one of those guys, the Deebo Samuels, the now DK Metcalf's involved in this, this tier of wide receivers as well, the guys from the 2019 draft that are, like I'm put on Twitter last night. I was like, I don't think we're really making enough of the fact that Christian Kirk deal to the Jaguars completely throwing this wide receiver market into a loop. And now you've got guys that are looking at that contract that Kirk had and going, where's my money? Like,
sure. Yeah. Well, and you do have AJ coming into the last year of his deal to where I think the Titans knew that was going to be the case.
Yep.
And, kind of like you have said, they kind of made their bed with Ryan Tannehill and the contract that they gave him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
that's the nature of the NFL. I mean, you've seen it over the last few years. Is you have a window to win with your quarterback on a rookie deal or a quarterback that's on a team-friendly deal to try to get involved and get to a championship and build around your quarterback while he's on that lesser deal. I mean, now you put the Titans, Tannehill came in, he looked great for a short period of time, but he's not a Super Bowl caliber quarterback, but you've paid him as such.
Mm-hmm.
And that's now you've shot yourself in the foot. You've essentially put yourself in a rebuild fairly quickly. And now you have
I don't know if I'd necessarily say rebuild for the Titans. I mean, they have the same type of pieces. To be able to get them. Look, the Titans are going to live and die by the run, and there's not a whole lot of teams that can stop Derrick Henry. But you saw that this last year when the Bengals pretty much did stop Derrick Henry, and it was one of those things to where Ryan Tannehill could not throw the ball and get them down in there. I mean, they had a much better defense this last year. I think they are. Yeah, I mean, they're the best team in the AFC South still. I mean, yeah, they are better than the Colts.
Ooh, man! Even with Matt Ryan at quarterback,
Matt Ryan is not exactly beating the world with what he's doing with the Falcons.
Sure, but you have to factor in too. I mean, he's going to a team with a better offensive line with the Colts than he had in Atlanta for the last 3 years, and he's going to a team that has a bona fide running game to support him with Jonathan Taylor, something that the Falcons could not find if you put it in front of their face, and. Got Jaquan Brisker, safety, Penn State, going to the Chicago Bears. Ryan Poles. How are we feeling as a Bears fan? Ryan Poles, first 2 picks.
I mean, I was talking about this with one of my Bears buddies at work today. You are going to live and die by the defense, and that
that city, yes,
you are living and dying by the defense. So. these guys that the Bears are getting are good.
Bears fans on the telecast chock full of excitement.
Yay! I mean, that's how I am. Yay!
Golf claps out the wazoo.
Yay!
Bears fans right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting defensive guys that are very aggressive, and that's what usually works with the Bears. However, I still would like some offense to build. I want, but I mean, you got a franchise quarterback who you spent 2 first-round draft picks on. You've got to protect him. B, you got to get him some weapons. As good as the defense may or may not be, you've got to be able to do that. So,
yeah, I mean, I think just based on where they were with some of these picks and guys that probably could have came in and been difference makers, it's just, I mean, I think the Bears had a little bit more. They've got some more holes all around the team that Poles is looking to kind of fill with these 2 early picks here, staying on the defensive side of the ball in the secondary. I mean, you have to. I mean, look at it from that perspective. You said live and die on the defense and the division that you're in, and the moves that have been made by the teams in that division. You have Aaron Rodgers, who's always going to be a thorn in the side of Bears fans year after year. You got Minnesota. You've got Justin Jefferson there, monster, going to be a threat to deal with for the next few years, unless he winds up wanting out of Minnesota too, just like Stephon Diggs. But now you have Detroit, wide passing games left and right with those moves that were made we just talked about. I mean, I see the mindset Ryan Poles is trying to go for here, staying with the defense and the secondary. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, you can win with a good defense.
As proven by Rex Grossman in 2000, what was that, 3? 6?
5 or 6.
Yeah, 2005, I think. Yeah, I think it was 2005. Yeah, Rex Grossman and that Bears defense.
Oh, gross puke. I mean, yes. But they still at least had weapons, though. They had Muhsin Muhammad.
Sure.
You had weapons out there. You had a run game. You had a good offensive line. You had people out there to get the job done. The Bears don't have that right now. So,
right.
and I mean, they're in a full rebuild. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much like the Falcons. I don't think there's too many bad things that you could do. But I promise you, the Falcons, if they had a quarterback like Justin Fields, who they should have gotten, they would have done that. So, I'm going to skip out for just a minute, but I will be back. I'm staying on. I'll be back here in just a little bit.
And he's stepping out to eat for a few minutes.
That's right.
Something that I have not done yet myself either. So
we can come back.
I mean, I figure we'll do this podcast for a little while longer. We won't go all night. I mean, it is Friday night, so
there you go.
People are out doing things. So yeah, step away, get you some food. We'll come back. We'll kind of discuss where we're at. I'll keep rambling on for the next few minutes.
Rambling.
Bob Seger, I'm the rambling.
Rambling, don't wreck it. All
right. So Nick stepping away as we continue coverage of the draft through round 2, 16 picks into this second round. So halfway through the second round, but wanted to jump back in and kind of talk about that A.J. Brown trade and the situation with Treylon Burks now to the Titans as well. It's like I mentioned last night. I think this is an obvious downgrade for A.J. Brown. There's been a lot of conjecture about it all day on Twitter, a little bit of back and forth as what this really means for A.J. Brown moving forward. Just look at it from the perspective of in Tennessee. Tennessee was 31st in passing just a season ago as far as attempts and really just passing game in general. He was the main focal point of that passing attack. Targets came through him when he was on the field. He was the go-to receiver for that passing attack there with the Tennessee Titans. And he put up good numbers when healthy and on the field. Definitely a guy that was really on that cusp of top 10 receiver week in and week out based on where he was in the passing game of the Titans. Now he moves to Philadelphia 32nd in passing in 2021. So obvious downgrade in terms of what this team does from a passing standpoint. I think you look at it from statistical standpoint, I think from around week 6 to week 8 on, where they made some changes to the offense and really kind of geared things more towards the RPO, that running style attack from Jalen Hurts and what they can do in that running game. They just did not really feel the need to throw the ball that much. They kind of kept it more ground oriented, really focused in on that ball control, limit mistakes that Jalen Hurts would make as a passer, because let's be honest, he was a little bit erratic at times last year. Now you have AJ Brown there, and he's going to be fighting with 4 targets with Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. I mean, that's just, I don't think that there's going to be enough volume from that passing game to really make AJ Brown a productive fantasy wide receiver that we've been accustomed to seeing out of him. I even mentioned it last night. This puts the nail in the coffin for AJ Brown as a potential wide receiver 1 in fantasy, especially for 2022. I don't see it. I don't think that's going to be there. You've got AJ Brown is now. That's another situation we've talked about through the show so far already, is that quarterback situations moving forward, they're going to be very fluid. Is Jalen Hurts going to be the guy in 2023 for the Philadelphia Eagles? Not so very sure on that. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on there. So for me, I think AJ Brown now is going to be a guy that you're going to look at probably somewhere in the 3rd round in redrafts. So that's probably where I'm going to have him landing with redraft rankings. Once I get into those after this draft is completed, start kind of getting things prepped up for the 2022 season. I think I'm going to have AJ Brown right there in that kind of around that 3rd round area, and so that'll be something to keep interesting to keep an eye on too for the next few weeks, especially in the best ball drafts on underdog as well. Keep an eye on, jump in on Best Ball Mania 3 once they get that kicked up. They announced that as last night, underdog with the $10 million prize pool for the Best Ball Mania 3 contest once that gets kicked up and started. And also wanted to mention promo code WOO with Underdog Fantasy gets you a matching deposit of up to $100 for your first initial deposit. So if you know anybody that has not signed up for Underdog yet, tell them to jump in. Promo code WOO, price match on that first deposit. Definitely get in there. And if you've not done that yourself as well, jump in there. Underdog Fantasy. Simply put, the best ball drafting format platform that you have out there on the internet. Underdog Fantasy, promo code WOO, matching your deposit up to $100. So go and sign up today there. Keeping an eye on the board here as well. You got Alontae Taylor, cornerback from Tennessee, coming off the board here, 17th pick to the New Orleans Saints, who trying to shore up a little bit of the secondary there with that defense down in New Orleans. Alontae Taylor, very familiar with him from Tennessee. He has that prototypical size and look that a lot of defensive coordinators covet. Dennis Allen, probably very, very high on Alontae Taylor just from looks alone. Tested fairly well at the combine, but from an on the field in-game standpoint, was definitely a guy that was very, very up and down and inconsistent at times at Tennessee. He was kind of the main cornerback that was defending other teams' number 1 wide receivers from time to time. And if you go back to Senior Bowl week and Senior Bowl practice, Alontae Taylor did not have a very, very good week down at the Senior Bowl. So I'm kind of actually shocked to see Alontae Taylor go this high in the draft. I really saw him as more of kind of a 3rd round pick type guy. So that for me is a little bit of a surprising pick there. But that is the nature of the 2022 draft that we've seen so far. A lot of surprising picks that we've kind of encountered so far in this draft, and you can really never really put your finger on it when it comes to where players are going to go. You have some ideas, but you never really truly know how these front office guys are going to view things. But jumping back into those wide receivers from round 1, we were talking about Treylon Burks. I think he obviously is going to be a guy that's going to move up very high on those rookie boards now. Looking at a guy that's probably going to be the number 2, number 3 pick off the board when it comes to rookie drafts. He's going to be right there in that area with Garrett Wilson, Drake London, and also now Traylon Burks. Just from a sheer target standpoint alone, we just mentioned A.J. Brown. He was the main focal point of that offense. Now you're going to be looking at Traylon Burks stepping in and hopefully filling that A.J. Brown void. Robert Woods, like I mentioned, comes over from the Los Angeles Rams coming off the injury. They bring him in as a guy that's going to – I think you're going to see Robert Woods on the field more in 2022 than you see Traylon Burks, but that's going to be mostly from a need standpoint because Robert Woods is a guy that's going to be – he's a great blocker. And he can really set the edge out there for this running game from Derrick Henry. So I think that was a guy that they brought in based on need, how they wanted to run their offense with Robert Woods. They're going to really kind of eat off of each other in the passing game. And we mentioned Austin Hooper too as well. Which Austin Hooper are we going to get there in that offense? The guy from the Atlanta Falcons that was catching a lot of balls from Matt Ryan and was a tight end 1, or is it going to be the guy that was with the Cleveland Browns that was really a disappointment on the contract that they paid him? Not sure what we're going to get from Austin Hooper there. And let's be real, the Titans over the course of the last 2 to 3 years have just not been an offensive put much of an emphasis on the tight end in that passing attack. So I think Traylon Burks fits in pretty well with what the Titans are going to want to do. They're going to want to get him the ball in space, something that he was he did well at Arkansas. They really kind of got the ball to him early and often behind the line of scrimmage, really allowed him to use his athleticism and tackle breaking abilities to kind of move the ball and get down the field. So I think that's going to be what you'll see from Traylon Burks with the Titans there. And like I mentioned, I think you're going to have him as an obvious top 5 pick in rookie drafts as things stand right now. Redraft wise, though, wide receiver 1, technically with the Titans, you're probably going to look and see him. I think in best ball drafts, I think I saw Michael Florio, also from Roto Baller and NFL Network, was doing a best ball draft earlier and got him at the end of round 8, just for kind of a look-see as to where his ADP could possibly lie right now. That's where you're seeing Traylon Burks at this moment. Outside of that, the other receivers that went in round 1, a head-scratcher of a move for me was the Washington Redskins trading back, where they could have had their pick of a lot of these wide receivers that were coming off the board in that grouping. They moved back. They could have had any of the pick of guys in that realm of – they could have gotten Chris Olave. They could have gotten Jameson Williams. But they moved back, trade back to the 16th spot to take Jahan Dotson. I mean, I like Jahan Dotson. I think he's going to be a guy that's a good pro. He's another one of these guys that really kind of fits well to an NFL offense. But going to Washington, I mean, he's going to be the number 2 next to Terry McLaurin. Got Carson Wentz as the quarterback for 2022. And again, the narrative has been, like we've talked about through this show so far, what's the situation at quarterback past 2022? Carson Wentz, odds are he's not going to be the quarterback in 2023. I think the Washington Commanders, that's going to take a while to get used to as well. Washington Commanders are going to be a team that probably are going to be drafted towards the top of round 1 next year. And be looking at a quarterback and probably be in the running for C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. That might be what will be on the dockets for them as far as potential moves. And Jahan Dotson builds a nice young group of nice young nucleus to build with between he and Terry McLaurin. But I just don't see much of an appeal there from a redraft standpoint this year. Dynasty standpoint, you're probably going to be looking at a guy that you can get tail end of round 2 now in rookie drafts, probably early in round 3 based on the landing spot and based on how the rest of this draft unfolds. And speaking of wide receivers, we just had Tyquan Thornton come off the board to go to the New England Patriots, which, wow, that feels like a reach again for the Patriots. Tyquan Thornton was the guy that was kind of coming up boards a lot. Prototypical size, has the speed, one of the fastest receivers in this draft class. So feels the needs for the Patriots there in that aspect. But are we feeling good about a Baylor wide receiver coming into the league after the Denzel Mims experiment kind of went haywire for the New York Jets? Do I think Tyquan Thornton is going to be a guy that really he can be reckoned with? Not necessarily. There's similar situation there. Too many mouths to feed at this point in time. You've still got the two tight ends with the Patriots. I mean, we saw Hunter Henry really kind of take off towards the end of the year last year. I mean, you've got all those receivers that are just mixing in and out of the formations for the Patriots in that passing attack. I mean, you had Kendrick Bourne, you got Nelson Aguilar. I mean, N'Keal Harry, if he can find any shred of ability to get back into that rotation, he might be a guy that kind of gets cut out of the roster at this point in time with Thornton coming in there. I think Thornton brings them a little bit more length and a little bit more ability to get down the field. But can Mac Jones be that guy that gets that ball downfield consistently enough for Thornton to be a threat? That I'm not so sure of. I don't think the volume is going to be there for Thornton. That seems like a bit of a reach there. 18 picks in round 2, 50th overall. Patriots get Tyquan Thornton. I think that's one we can kind of move on from. Probably looking at a kind of a late round 2 wide receiver and rookie drafts there for Thornton with the New England Patriots now as well. So jumping back into round 1, kind of the last one I really wanted to touch base on was Chris Olave. We really haven't talked about that too much. I think that was kind of almost a match made in heaven for the New Orleans Saints. I think he's a great guy to put opposite of Michael Thomas. And it's like I mentioned last night, I was talking to somebody last night, if Michael Thomas comes back and is committed to football and committed to the Saints, I think you're going to see a better offense in 2022 than we saw in 2021. Now, Dennis Allen, of course, is probably going to run a little bit more game management, limit mistakes from Jameis type of an offense there. But I think Olave is a guy that can really do some damage in this passing attack. He does a great job to get down the field, something that they need because Michael Thomas is, he's been known to be the guy that cuts the slant over the middle. That's his bread and butter. Olave, even though he's shown that he can run that same route tree as well, he's got the speed and the elusiveness and separation skills to get down the field. And we've seen it before with Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston likes to get the ball down the field, likes to complete deep passes. And I think that's something that the Saints offense has really not done here and over the last couple of years, especially with Drew Brees at the end of his tenure with the Saints too. It's just they've not taken those shots down the field and taken the chances enough. I think Chris Olave is a guy that can give them that. So Olave for me really mixes in that 5, 6, 7 range in rookie drafts now as well. Just based alone on the draft on that landing spot, I like that. I like the player. I was pretty high on Olave coming out as well. I had him really, really high in my rookie rankings coming into moving some players around. He was kind of right there in that mix with Drake London, with the competing for the 3-4 wide receiver in this group heading into the draft. So I don't really see a change there. I think I'll probably keep him as my wide receiver 4, even based on how some of the things have kind of fallen so far through this draft to this point in time. And the other pick of round 1 that we really not have touched base on too much to a degree so far, kind of slightly brought it up, but really hadn't really touched base on it too much. Kenny Pickett to the Pittsburgh Steelers, pick 20. Like we mentioned earlier on, Mitchell Trubisky, that's going to be your starter early on for the Steelers here in 2022. Pickett, this gives him a little bit of time to kind of acclimate himself to the league and really get in and learn the nuances of the NFL game. We saw it last night. I mean, just the one quarterback drafted, even still so far to this point, we've not had a second quarterback come off the board, and we're now 18 picks into round 2. So I kind of mentioned that last night on Twitter at Roto Superstar, is that the NFL showed us last night what they really think about this quarterback class, and if you can, some of us that really kind of looked into the some of the film and really kind of dove into a lot of this prospect film and grading and really kind of doing the studying as we headed into the NFL draft. I didn't feel great about this crop of quarterbacks, but there's just been this need over the last several years in the NFL that you've got to get a quarterback in the first round. If you're a quarterback needy team, you've just got to get your quarterback. And I think this year kind of proved that theory wrong, because there's several teams in this draft that really could have used drafting a quarterback. The Seahawks being one of them we've talked about so far. Panthers could have been one that could have taken a quarterback. Even the Falcons should have taken a quarterback so far. But that value is just not there. Those quarterbacks that are in this class are not the type of quarterbacks that are going to be the type of quarterback that can immediately turn your team around and make you a winner, which is really what a lot of teams are looking to do. I mean, let's just look at Joe Burrow with the Bengals. They've turned that team into a Super Bowl competing team just a year ago. I think you're going to see the same situation with Justin Herbert and the Chargers early on in that contract. They're going to be competing for a Super Bowl. And heck, even, you take it back to Jared Goff with the Rams just a few years ago on that rookie deal. And he was good enough to get them to a Super Bowl because they built the team wisely around him. But that's the thing. I mean, most of these NFL teams are going to want such a quick turnaround to be able to compete early and often. And that's going to be something that I don't know if any of these quarterbacks have it in them to be able to do. I mean, Malik Willis, there's been a lot of talk about him. A lot of people are excited about him. He's shown flashes on tape, but he's also shown those inconsistencies on tape too. That's been a little bit off-putting to a degree sometimes. So I think he's a project type of quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to come in right away and year one, year two, and be a guy that you can really put shoulder the load and really carry an offense for a team. I think he's going to be a guy that is going to have to build and round into shape there. And let's be honest, the right fit is going to be the biggest thing for a quarterback like Malik Willis and some of these others in this class. Is you have to get them in the right fit. Guys that are going to be able to really hone their skills, build an offense that can really predicate to their skills, and accentuate their positives and hide their negatives. So it'll be interesting to see where these quarterbacks come off the board, where they land based on fit, based on need. So staying with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and pick 20 in the second round, the Steelers go George Pickens finally off the board, a guy that was rumored to go late round one. Some of the teams like the Packers, like the Chiefs, and here the Steelers get George Pickens, 20 picks in, 52 overall, going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pretty good pick. I like that, but this is going to be the thing. George Pickens is definitely a guy that sample size is very small, but what we saw out of George Pickens is a lot of ability, a lot of there's some upside with George Pickens. The Steelers, and I was talking with Nick about this off air earlier today. I mean, the Steelers, they do a great job of developing their wide receivers that are further down the depth chart. We've seen it before, like Santonio Holmes coming up the board, Mike Wallace coming up the board, and you get into Antonio Brown coming up the board, Deontay Johnson, a guy that if you followed the Woo Fantasy podcast for these number of years, Deontay Johnson was a guy that I was naming out, during the draft process and getting into training camp, was a guy to keep an eye on, especially from a dynasty perspective. I thought he was going to be that next guy for the Steelers, where they build from the ground up. I think George Pickens is going to be that guy as well. So you got him there in the fold. Deontay Johnson, of course, is still going to be the bona fide wide receiver one here. Chase Claypool, coming off a disappointing season, has all the talent in the world. Another guy that has that size like George Pickens. Now you've got a guy there in George Pickens that's going to come in, young wide receiver. Same thing with Johnson and Claypool. It can really kind of build around Kenny Pickett. Smart decision making by the organization. Bring in this talented young core nucleus of receivers to build with your young quarterback. Get that rapport early on and let them go. So I think the Steelers are going to be in a situation where year one post Ben Roethlisberger probably going to be a little bit of a down year, but they're going to be building something here with Kenny Pickett and this group of wide receivers. Not to mention Najee Harris. This is a solid group that they're starting to build here. Can Kenny Pickett be the quarterback that we saw just last year with Pittsburgh? Put up tremendous numbers in that offense with Pittsburgh. Can he translate that over into the NFL? Can he show that he was not just a one-year wonder with college production? That's going to be a big tale here. So I think if I'm going to trust a coaching staff, I'm always going to trust that coaching staff for the Steelers. They usually do a great job of building up talent from within that organization. So I do like that pick there. George Pickens, I think he's going to stay within that first round in rookie drafts now. It should be a solid kind of a late round pick and redraft to kind of go after. Yeah, he's going to be the wide receiver 3 in an offense that's really probably not going to throw the ball a ton. George Pickens really more of kind of guy that you want to target late in best ball drafts, like on underdog fantasy. I like him as a late round target in a lot of these rookie drafts because I think he's going to have weeks, especially middle of the year, late towards the end of the year, where he's going to pop some big games. Gets into the end zone, 85 yards and a touchdown, has some solid games like that down the stretch. You're just not going to know when to get him into your lineup if you have him in a redraft or a dynasty format. So that's going to be the thing with George Pickens. And then we have immediately following the pick of George Pickens, the Colts come in for what believe their first pick of this draft here is coming in here with the 21st pick, 53 overall. Alec Pierce, the wide receiver from Cincinnati, was gaining a little bit of steam there. You'll see a lot in a lot of the Twitter draft circles. You saw some people that were high on him. You saw that some people that were cold on him. As for me, I was a little bit indifferent on Alec Pierce. I just didn't feel good one way or another. He was definitely going to be a guy that's really landing spot dependent. I've had him 24th overall in my rookie board heading into the draft. So he's just going to be kind of a guy that's there with the Colts. I mean, let's look at it now. You mean you've got some options there in that passing game. Matt Ryan, bridge quarterback, obviously. They're going to wind up going and finding them another quarterback to move on to after 2022, perhaps. I wouldn't think that Matt Ryan will be the guy in 2023 there. This is going to be a running team, obviously, with Jonathan Taylor there. So I'm not sure how this is going to work out when it comes to Alec Pierce and his value here with the Indianapolis Colts. So that's I think that was kind of a pick. I mean, you probably could have made the Alec Pierce pick I think in the third round. I think he could have been there. That's just not one that I'm overly fond of currently as we're looking at it. So you've got definitely, like I mentioned, this is the team that's really centered around Jonathan Taylor in the running game. Michael Pittman kind of had a little bit of a breakout last year for the Colts, was definitely a guy that was showing flashes last year. Now I think you're going to get a more consistent quarterback with Matt Ryan. I think you're really going to see Michael Pittman take another step forward in that passing attack. Paris Campbell, if he can stay healthy. Ashton Doolin, he's flashed here and there as well. So I think you're going to see Alec Pierce probably competing for that wide receiver 3 spot on this roster with Ashton Doolin. More than likely. The team likes Mike Strachan. He's just been one of those guys that's really worked well in practice, and they've been a fan of his multiple years now. He's shown flashes, especially in training camp last year. A lot of talk about him as the camp broke and got into the regular season. He was kind of a guy that was starting to get a little bit of sleeper talk moving towards the end of training camp, but. Michael Pittman, main focal point here. Paris Campbell, hopefully he can stay healthy. That's the biggest knock on him. But now you've got Alec Pierce kind of mixing into a ho-hum situation there, wide receiver for the Colts there. Uh, I think this is going to put him kind of more in that third round range of rookie drafts. Should not be drafted. I would not suggest drafting him in redraft. Probably a late stab, just based on Paris Campbell's injury history in best ball. But dynasty wise, I mean, like I said, he's probably going to be a third round rookie pick. Going to be on your bench for most of the season in 2022, unless something shakes out and he takes a really strong hold in that offensive formation, and definitely gets kind of mixed in and out there. Who's to say how that's going to work out as we get into the season? But yeah, I think he's going to be kind of an end of the bench guy in dynasty moving forward, based on how things shake out there. And the hits just keep on coming. Wow. So Sky Moore, a guy that I had actually mocked to go to the Kansas City Chiefs at the end of round 1, makes it almost to the end of round 2 here and goes to the Kansas City Chiefs at 54 overall. I like this pick. That is a good, solid pick by the Kansas City Chiefs there. He's not going to fill the void of Tyreek Hill. Let's be honest, there's not many wide receivers that can fill that void. But I think he comes in and he's going to be a guy that can really mix in this offense immediately. I mean, they got Juju Smith-Schuster. Yes, I get it. Most of this passing attack is obviously going to go through Travis Kelce. Obviously, we know that. But outside of that, I mean, let's be honest here. It's just pull up the good old depth chart here. Mecole Hardman, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the other two wide receivers in this rotation. Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, let's see what he's really got now. He's competing as he's back as the number one wide receiver on a roster for a team. Can Patrick Mahomes bring Juju Smith-Schuster up to that level that we saw just 2 to 3 years ago? That remains to be in question as well. I think Sky Moore can kind of come in and really mix in with this group of wide receivers from day one. So I like him a lot. I think Sky Moore's going to stay a first-round pick for me in rookie drafts. The landing spot is great. Rookie draft-wise, or redraft-wise, probably looking at redraft. Man, that's going to be a tricky one. I'd feel comfortable with Sky Moore around the 10th, 11th round, right in that area, because I would draft him as the guy that you're going to be drafted. But look at how a lot of teams were drafting Mecole Hardman last summer. Kind of in that same range, at 10 to 12th round. He was expected to be wide receiver 2 with some upside there with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think you're going to be looking at the same situation here with Sky Moore. I like that pick. Like I mentioned, I think there's some upside there. Definitely. Dynasty-wise, I think that could definitely be the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver 1 here in the next couple of years. And that's definitely a valuable thing to do, especially as Travis Kelce kind of winds his tenure down in the NFL and getting a little long in the tooth, so to speak. I think that's a definite situation where I would want to buy in on Sky Moore. I like that pick there. Kansas City Chiefs filling a need with the departure of Tyreek Hill there. And then following the pick of Sky Moore, the Arizona Cardinals jump in and grab a tight end with Trey McBride. Again, building the narrative of just we talked about earlier with the situation with the trade with Hollywood Brown there. They're building pieces around Kyler Murray. They have to see what they have out of Kyler Murray. Trey McBride, obviously, arguably was going to be the tight end 1 in this draft. I'm actually shocked to see a tight end go in round 2. I was expecting not see a tight end drafted until round 3 in this draft, but good landing spot. He's going to learn from one of the best there has been over the last several years with Zach Ertz there in Arizona. So he's going to learn how to be a pro, how to be the tight end. Biggest thing with Trey McBride is that dude he is a tough guy. And has the leadership skills that you want out of a guy at that position too. So he does not care to get his face bloodied out there blocking or really competing for contested catches over the middle. Trey McBride's definitely a guy that he's going to have some upside there in that offense if they can learn how to consistently utilize that tight end. They did once Zach Ertz kind of came into the fold there with Arizona, and a lot of that had to do with some injury situations there because, Hopkins gone, AJ Green being who he was, just a lot of in and out situations with those wide receivers there. Christian Kirk just really wasn't. He was up and down himself there too, and that's what even made the move for him to sign even more of a head scratcher to go to Jacksonville, and that's such a large contract, is because I just didn't think he was worth that type of money based on what he was doing and producing with the Arizona Cardinals. So now you've got Trey McBride there. Obviously, probably going to be the number one tight end taken in rookie drafts. I'd be okay with him towards the end of round 2, or right there on that turn, round 2, round 3 in a rookie draft. I obviously, given past production, you don't see many tight ends come in the league and produce early on. I mean, we saw last year Kyle Pitts, even to a degree, did not live up to the hype that a lot of people were thinking you're going to see from the 4th overall pick. A lot of people are taking him easily inside those top 5, top 6 tight ends last year, even in redraft, and it just didn't pan out. I mean, let's be honest about it. And he was a great prospect, one of the best we've seen at that position over the last several years. Trey McBride coming in, he'll be able to compete right away, but the workload's not going to be there. That volume's not going to be there from a passing perspective in year 1. This is going to be more of a dynasty situation for Trey McBride once Zach Ertz leaves. But again, narrative, I keep saying it throughout this show. How's this team going to look in 2 years? And that's something you have to keep in mind. Will Kyler Murray still be the quarterback there for the Arizona Cardinals? Will they sign him to that extension? Will he get the big money deal to stay there? And if that's the situation, you're going to have a lot of money tied into Kyler Murray, and you're going to probably start to see some pieces fall off of that offense. Can they afford to keep Marquise Brown around? Probably not. Zach Ertz will likely be gone. So that's going to put Trey McBride here within the next 2 to 3 year window in a situation where he could be a main focal point in that passing attack next to DeAndre Hopkins. So that's definitely a guy you kind of want to buy into and put on the end of your bench, in a dynasty format, just to kind of let him sit there, especially if you're in a good spot at tight end right now. Say you have a Mark Andrews, say you have a Travis Kelce, and that, those upper echelon type guys, even a Darren Waller, some of those guys that are up at the top, tops of the league at their position. Can you afford to grab Trey McBride and let him sit on the bench and let that pan out over the next couple of years? Sure, that's kind of a good, smart way to go about it from a dynasty management perspective. At least that's how I would do it. Because it puts you in a situation where if he starts to excel early on in the career in year 2, year 3, and he starts to round into shape, it gives you a little bit of ammunition to be able to move pieces. Especially if you have one of those upper echelon guys that start to get a little bit older, like the Darren Wallers and like the Travis Kelce's, as they start to kind of come down, you can move them while their value is still there and build pieces around the rest of your roster. And you're going to be set with a guy like a Trey McBride. Cowboys pick 24, go with the edge rusher Sam Williams from Mississippi. So we are back to the thought process of let's build from internally and outward. That's kind of how they really should be doing things right now with this team. A lot of turnover with this Cowboys roster throughout the offseason. We've talked about that so far. And there's Mr. Dinner Time jumping back into the draft room here. Just finished talking about this surge of picks that we've had here in the last few minutes. So I'll bring him in here and let's go over
the crappy Cowboys pick.
No. I was just kind of touching on that because that was the last pick off the board until we just had the Buccaneers go with a guard from Central Michigan. So
who's not even the Central Michigan lineman that we thought would go first.
Yeah, exactly. So We had this slew of offensive
did.
playmakers.
Wide
And I would say
receivers.
playmakers come off the board. He had a run of 3 wide receivers coming off the
Well,
board.
tight end, but yes.
Yeah, and Trey McBride. I just finished talking a lot about Trey McBride here. Just
What
a
do
few
you
minutes
feel
ago.
about Trey McBride?
Trey McBride is I have him as a guy you want to get late round 2, early round 3 in a rookie draft, depending on the situation. Like I was mentioning, how you have your roster constructed right now. If you got a Travis Kelce, if you got a Darren Waller, one of those guys that are a little bit older, McBride's probably going to be a guy that's going to take over in 2 to 3 years. Zach Ertz is going to leave. If the team pays Kyler Murray a big deal, that's going to mean that they cannot pay other players elsewhere on this roster. So Marquise Brown probably goes. DeAndre Hopkins stays. You could see Trey McBride being their number 2, number 3 option in the passing game here within the next 2 to 3 years. So I like him. I think he's a guy you can draft, put on your roster, back into the bench.
We got Falcons ownership on the phone. That doesn't usually happen for an offensive lineman there.
No, or they're going to trade back.
Yeah, Arthur Blank's never on the phone for anything that trivial.
Probably not.
I mean, do we see a quarterback here?
Man, it's about time.
Okay. Oh, former Heffley favorite Warwick Dunn making the selection.
Oh, wow.
And throwing out the chop. Gotta love it.
Oh, God.
Here we go.
Fresh off of building houses for single mothers. Work done.
Well, apparently Arthur Blank does talk to people who aren't quarterbacks.
Yeah. Linebacker Troy Anderson from Montana State. Good job.
Apparently feels the need to hop on the phone with those types.
Well, that's why I was, like I said, I think that was probably he was getting on the phone to maybe see if there's a chance to make a move and go down. I think that's where you're going to see a lot of that right now.
Oh, you shouldn't want to do that. No. So getting back to your question, sorry, that's what the draft is.
Well, that slew of picks from 20 to 23. George Pickens to the Steelers, Alec Pierce to the Colts, Sky Moore to the Kansas City Chiefs, Trey McBride to the Cardinals.
Yeah,
favorite pick there out of those 4.
I mean, it's got to be Sky Moore, right? I mean,
there you go.
I do like the Pickens pick to the Steelers. I mean, I think that's
do too.
I think that's a great move, but
what I brought up is what I was talking to you earlier today about is just that propensity for the Steelers to really build from the ground up with that receiving core, and we've seen it over the course of time with Santonio Holmes, Mike Wallace. And then you get into Antonio Brown, now Deontay Johnson. You're seeing those guys kind of rise up the depth chart and become factors on that offense. I like the landing spot because of that.
No, I 100% agree with that. I mean, Sky Moore has got to be, a favorite just simply because of the other wide receivers around him are not going to be very good. I mean, he is going to step very favorably into that Tyreek Hill role. There where Mecole Hardman, I feel, is just more of an also ran / also ran very fast. But I mean, Juju, I think, is going to be a good receiver for them. But those two are going to play 2 very different roles. So
yeah, they are
good landing spot there.
Yeah, I think Juju is going to kind of round into more of that possession receiver type role that he's had before in the past, and Sky Moore is going to be definitely a guy that can get down the field and be more of a threat vertically for the offense. That's what I like about that. I mean, I like Sky Moore coming into the draft too. I was one of those who's really, once you really kind of look into the tape on him and really start to study some things, I kind of liked him heading into the draft. And I had him mocked to the Chiefs last night at the end of round 1. Here we are getting him in round 2. So
I've done that. I've done that on some mocks where I've had somebody mock to the correct team in round 1, but he actually not go to them and go to the actual team that I mocked in round 2.
Right. So then you had mixed in there in those players, you had Alec Pierce going to the Colts. I'm not a fan. This felt like it was just kind of a ho-hum type of pick. I don't think Alec Pierce is really going to be much of a factor there with the Colts.
Agreed. I mean, I think he is. I mean, he could be as high as maybe the number 2. I mean, depending on how Paris Campbell does. I mean, you got Ashton Doolin, who decided he was going to have a couple halfway decent games last year, but I think Pittman is going to be the guy there. And you're going to have a lot of people kind of mixed in and around that.
Yep.
I think he could do something, but I mean, he's not one of those guys that just jumps off the page. I mean, he's going to be a last couple of rounds, maybe last round type of dart through who really and truly probably will not even get picked.
Yeah.
I mean,
you almost took the exact phrasing from me as I talked about Alec Pierce after the pick was made.
Yeah.
I feel like he's a best ball pick late in the draft.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, he could have that ability. I mean, he presents a little bit different skill set than some of the other receivers that they have there. But again, I think Pittman is going to be the guy there. And I mean, Paris Campbell has failed to stay healthy.
Yep.
So, could this be? We got the circle the wagons around the Buffalo Bills. Could this be a spot where we see a running back? Obviously, the backs that would have really succeeded there.
Could it be Isaiah Spiller?
Could it be? But and here's my thing that I don't get. And granted, I'm a Devin Singletary fan from this last year, but Singletary had a go. Well, it won't be because we got to trade.
Well, I mean, it still could be if they traded down.
Well, yeah. But with that, Singletary. I mean, go back and look at his last 3 or 4 games of the regular season. Look at some of his playoff games. He was running the hell out of the ball whenever they gave him an opportunity.
He was.
So,
same thing as Rashad Penny.
To quit taking the words out of my mouth.
Same exact thing with Rashad Penny. I mean, you had a back that excelled and helped win some fantasy managers titles at the end of the year last year. Now,
I mean,
coming into this draft, here we are again. Bang.
I am one of them. I mean, I almost took down some expert leagues thanks to Devin Singletary, who just kind of remained on my roster, and then all of a sudden they were just like, yeah, I think we're going to feature you now. Where the hell has that been all year?
Right. Yeah. Oof. But now you got. I mean, that's been one of the teams rumored to take a running back in this draft and throw something into some wrenches into some things there in that backfield.
Yeah.
Because obviously we know, I think they've lost all hope for Zach Moss at this point in time.
Sure. Yeah, and he was getting hyped to hell.
He definitely was.
You and with this Bengals pick coming up here, I go back to Trey McBride. I mean, they would have been the ideal team to take Trey McBride.
But I mean they can still go that route. I like Greg Dulich as a tight end.
UCLA kid.
UCLA's tight end. I think
this is a little too early for him.
It's too early for Greg Dulich, and I mentioned it when Trey McBride was taken. I didn't think a tight end was going to get taken until round 3. So I was kind of shocked to see McBride get taken so early. But I think Dulich is a guy that fits the Bengals' needs, but not now. If they can get him in round 3, then that's a prime area to go after him.
Yeah, I think it's one of those spots here for the Bengals, and with as good as their offense is going to be. Obviously, they remade their offensive line.
Yep.
This has got to be on the defensive side of the ball, and namely in that secondary. It's got to be somewhere you address that secondary, because I mean that's really what's gonna kill you is if you don't do anything. That, and I mean it could very well. I mean, I'm looking at their defense here. I mean, they got Dax Hill in round 1. Jesse Bates has been really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a patchwork secondary.
It is.
Yeah, I mean they don't necessarily have exactly a great front 7 either. So I mean, could you go get a guy like a Nakobe Dean?
Could
I
be
don't know why is he dropped? I mean that's something that
he was one of those guys that I think there was some character issues that came up. You started hearing 2 days ago that he was probably a player that was going to start to slide down the board a little bit. So there we are. That's where we are at this point. It was the same thing with George Pickens. You started hearing rumblings about oh my goodness, his characters, red flags, stuff like that. But then, really, if you really delved into what those character things were, he talked a bunch of shit on the field during practice after he made a good play. And like essentially would kind of get into fights with his teammates on the field. I mean, that's the kid's a 18, 19-year-old kid. He's out there making plays. Yeah, he's going to say some stuff.
I mean, bring that on. Give me that guy any day. I mean,
sure. I mean, yeah, let me get a little fire out of my player. I like to hear stuff like that.
I mean, that I mean, yeah, that's ridiculous.
So if you go up the board a little bit earlier, right after you left, Tyquan Thornton going to the New England Patriots, Baylor wide receiver. Any feeling on that? Now, I kind of mentioned he was a guy that I just don't. I mean, size wise, it's a he fits the size mold that they don't really have in that receiving core right now. But he's one of the fastest receivers in this draft. But can Mac Jones get him the ball down the field if he outruns the ball?
I'm going to be honest with you. I know absolutely nothing about this kid other than he's fast.
He was one of these. It's if kind of reading a lot of things and kind of going through some stuff with Tyquan Thornton. He was
corner shocker.
It's another situation with Thornton where the NFL likes a player more than fantasy Twitter likes a player.
Right.
It's that situation. So you were hearing a lot of like rumblings with Tyquan Thornton that there's some teams that really like him. And you could probably see him go a little bit earlier in this draft. And then I'm looking at film and studying some stuff on Thornton, and I'm like, I just don't see. I see Denzel Mims again.
Yeah,
this is exactly what I was seeing.
Weren't you on Denzel Mims though?
I love Denzel Mims, so I've been shot by that bullet before,
and I never liked him from the beginning.
And I'm not going to go back to that. I think that's a Baylor offense that it's kind of the same thing. If you look at some of these Texas Tech wide receivers that come into the league, it's kind of like a red flag. I'm just going to stay away from those guys.
Yeah. Baylor guy, but
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Even still, same situation.
Okay,
yeah,
got it.
Because Texas Tech guys put up numbers and look great when the workouts come, but
yeah, so
not fitting in the NFL.
So I'm just reading ESPN's analysis here. They got him as a slot receiver, like you said. I mean, they don't necessarily have that in this offense, but I just don't know if there's the volume in the Patriots passing offense to be able to, if he is what he is supposed to be. There's not necessarily a ton of targets to be able to go around somebody like him. So
yeah, that's what I
won't be drafting him. I mean, probably round 3, round 4, kind of a dart throw type. Is all I would probably see. So
yeah, I don't feel any type of way towards Tyquan Thornton. There's no redraft appeal there, and he's definitely a guy that maybe if you want to pull the trigger late in the rookie draft and get him on your dynasty roster, if you have roster space just to see how things pan out, sure. But I think he's kind of going to wind up being like a wasted space on your roster.
Yeah,
I just don't think that consistency from a production standpoint is going to be there.
Nah, yeah, 100% agree. Yeah.
Switching, you text me while you're away eating, switching over to the defensive side of the ball. Alontae Taylor to the Saints.
Yeah, great. I tell you what, the Saints love them some Tennessee Volunteers.
That they do. I talked about that pick a little bit once it came off the board because, I mean, honestly, we saw him at Tennessee. I think there was bouts of inconsistency there. You could see him get beat routinely, but then you could see him make great plays. Also, it's a very up and down performance from Alontae Taylor watching a lot of the games from the Vols. But my biggest takeaway was from Alontae Taylor I mentioned it while you're away, is going back to the Senior Bowl practice week, that he put in a bad week on that practice field in the Senior Bowl. And I thought it was going to affect his stock, but here he is still going in round 2. So obviously Dennis Allen sees something in Alontae Taylor that he can mold as I would probably say nickel corner in year 1 for the Saints.
I mean, I'm not sure they've done some good work with some ex-Tennessee Volunteers here. I mean,
they have.
they know they can see some value in those guys, and
I was listening to like a podcast a week or two ago too. Like speaking of the Tennessee Vols stuff, I was listening to I think it's the Dynasty Nerds podcast, and they were talking about like going through. They were talking about like further down the board and guys that we'll probably see come off the board probably in round 3, round 4, stuff like that. It's like Ty Chandler, and the guy that I've been high on too, even as we headed into the pre-draft process, is Velus Jones. I think he's definitely going to be a sleeper in this draft that the team's going to get late in this draft. But the guys on that podcast were talking about it. Like, if you go in and you really look at some film with Tennessee Vols players over the years, is that they look the part, but that production's never there. And it's always been the question, like, why have the Tennessee Vols not been good? And I'm sitting there as I'm in the gym working out, listening to this podcast going, I can tell you why.
Ready? Hold on. Damn it. We were going to say at the same time, coaching. They get guys. They are notorious. I mean, I still remember Khalil McKenzie, #1 overall recruit on Rivals, comes in, and does he get coached up? No, he gets coached down. He even has to switch positions to even get drafted in the NFL, and he's already out of the league.
He's already out of the league. And the same thing, playing right next to Khalil McKenzie, Shy Tuttle is a guy that was overlooked in the draft, goes to the New Orleans Saints, who we've just prefaced with the pick here with Lante Taylor. Shy Tuttle's been a really good addition on the inside of that Saints defense so far.
Another huge 4 or 5-star guy that did not do anything, did not get coached up, goes to the pros and is starting.
And same thing last year. Trey Smith coming out of college. But we'll say this too, and I'll preface that by talking about Evan Neal just a week ago, and he leading into the draft. There was a lot of talk about, Evan Neal's medicals are going to cause him to slide down the draft board. My first initial thought was Trey Smith last year. Medicals caused him to slide down the draft board, and then possibly a little bit of bad film put on tape because of that's the Tennessee situation. But the guy had every stature and look and build of a guy that should have been a second, third round draft pick at that position. He slides to round 6. Now he looked great with the Chiefs last year.
No, he absolutely did. I was actually George Kidd. I don't know if you remember that name, linebacker from Milan High School, Milan, Tennessee, who played linebacker with the Tennessee Volunteers. Met him, got to know him quite a bit. Anyway, sold season tickets to him with the Braves. He came to the game the other night. We were actually talking about Trey Smith, and I was like, I have never watched a football game and simply just watched an offensive lineman. And I did that with Trey Smith, and it was amazing how good he was. But I think the difference with Evan Neal's medical is that's a fixable issue, whereas Trey Smith's issue was with his heart. And I think it's a lot different. I think teams
and blood
hands off a whole lot more. Yeah. And went hands off a little bit more because I think it's a little bit harder issue to fix. But like I'm sitting there, we're watching the draft last year, and I cannot believe that Trey Smith fell so far. I mean, even a team. I was begging the Bears to take him in round 3.
I was begging the Cowboys to take him.
Would have loved it, but
I'm begging the Cowboys to take him. We're reaching for safeties from LSU that were kicked off the team, and we could have used the offensive line help.
You guys like taking troubled people from LSU?
Yeah, that's just how things work. But now, like, you look at the situation with the Cowboys, we've boxed ourselves in a corner with injuries or guys leaving the team, and that the offensive line situation needs to be built back up. And then we go get Tyler Smith last night. That's going to wind up being a guy that they're going to hope takes over for Tyron Smith once Tyron finally calls it a career and he takes over at left tackle. So, and you speak about medical situations, it's the same thing with Tyler Smith last night. It's a guy that the doctors had to break both of his legs so that they could grow correctly and heal correctly because He waddled. He was bow-legged, like a guy that just rode horses all day. So, if you want to talk about weird medical situations, talk about that one. The guy that's getting his legs broken, doctors with baseball bats, so this guy could walk straight. So, you see that a lot with his offensive linemen. So, I mean, that's the thing. It's how much is conjecture, how much is smokescreen.
Sure.
Just to get guys to move up and down the board. So,
Speaking
Drake
about
Jackson coming off the board there. He was a guy that was getting talked up as a first-round pick 2 days ago. Again, another player sliding down the board. Drake Jackson. I think that's a good. I think that's going to be a good landing spot there too. Plays opposite. He's going to play opposite Nick Bosa. I think there's some upside there with Drake Jackson. So I like that pick.
Chargers continue to add pieces there.
Well, that's the 49ers, sir. So,
sorry, the 49ers.
Joey Bosa is what you thought I said, and I said Nick Bosa.
That is correct. I'm only half paying attention right now.
Yeah.
I'm looking at round 3 and I'm trying to think. I don't think my Bears have. I'm trying to think if they have a round 3 pick. Let's see what we got here. Teams. No. Teams. There we go. So
the Bears, the 7th pick in the 3rd round.
Oh, there they are.
Oh, it's the 7th pick in the 3rd round. Cowboys at 24.
There we go.
Colts with most of multiple picks. Which I figure we'll probably wind up and call this a show here in a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, when it gets to round 3, it starts to get a little delirious there, B.
Yeah. Plus it's 8:30 and not a lot of action as far as the jumping in and watching along.
I think we hit up on the right hit up on the right round to be able to come into and talk about some of these guys here. A lot of skill position guys here. While we're in the room here, we need to wish a happy birthday to our boy Mr. Charisma.
That's right, old feller's birthday today.
Old feller birthday here.
Yeah, young man out there.
That's right.
I actually have I had such a busy day with the day job. I didn't even think to send him a message yet. Poor feller.
Well, we might have to hop on a little phone call here with him in just a minute.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we can do that.
I've been trying to call him all day long here. Who the hell is this? Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Former Heffley fantasy favorite, Stevie Johnson.
Oh my goodness! Why so serious?
Oh, okay.
If you remember that T-shirt.
Hold on, sorry. I just heard the pick. Oh, we might go now. We got to stay for a minute and talk.
Yeah, I see it coming on the board now. Whew, James Cook. Well,
Sam Spiller and going Cook. I mean, is he not? I mean, I feel like this is like just a slightly better version of Zach Moss. I mean,
no, James Cook is going to be the pass catcher for that offense. That's what he does well. That's his primary threat and skill set is as a pass catching running back. So the way things are
just
set up,
dice up some teams though.
Yeah, but that's in a very, very small sample size. You know, he's playing behind Zamir White, who got a really more of the lion's share of the carries with Georgia. I mean, he could round into being a decent running back in the league. I think it's going to take a couple of years to really project that out. I think he's going to come in and probably play. I mean, it just depends on what they do with Zach Moss in that rotation. To be honest.
Do you see how do you see him comparing to his brother?
Come on.
That's a question.
That's not a question. He's not Dalvin Cook.
Okay.
That's not a chance. He's not Dalvin Cook. He doesn't have the chops to withhold the beating that an the running back can take in between the tackles. He's more slight of frame than Dalvin Cook. He doesn't have the build that Dalvin Cook did coming out. I don't think from a body standpoint he has what it takes to really kind of stay healthy. So you're gonna probably see a guy that will get nicked up if he's given too much of a workload as a runner. He's more of a guy that you're gonna want to kind of get in there that can be a really kind of take. He's more of a game breaker type of running back. Something that Devin Singletary is not. So that's how I'm viewing that, as he does what Devin Singletary cannot do.
That's a good compliment. I mean, that's what you want out of if you take a running back like that. You gotta have somebody that complements your other guys, and it's a strength when other guys have a weakness.
So. Myself heading into the draft, I just felt that James Cook was going to be an Arizona Cardinal at the end of the draft. That's where I thought he was going to land. I thought the Cardinals needed to get a running back after Chase Edmonds has left. They needed to get themselves a running back that was the pass catcher to James Conner's pound between the tackles type running style. That's where I thought Cook was going to land, but here we are. He's with the Bills.
Right.
Isaiah Spiller now still on the board. So again, I mean, the Bills take a running back. A lot of people were predicting it, not the running back a lot of people thought. What do you think?
That's true.
How do you think his backfield shakes up?
Again, I think we mentioned from Singletary this last year. I think Cook feels a little bit more, at least year one, like a complimentary guy. I feel like they kind of give the ball a little bit more to Singletary there, and he's the very least their lead guy. I mean, I feel like he's at least a 2-down back, and I mean, they might even put Cook and split Cook out wide even on some plays and keep Singletary in on third down. So year one, at least that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Right. Yeah, I think you're probably going to see him go first round rookie draft towards the end of first round, maybe depending on need and how the draft shakes out, probably leaks in round 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking more top of round 2. I'm thinking, I mean, if Spiller lands in a good spot, I think in a rookie draft, Spiller lands in a good spot. He's the third running back out of this group.
Sure.
If Spiller does not land in a good spot, like if let's say Spiller lands in a Arizona kind of a situation, yeah, I mean it's gonna be very close with him and Cook. But let's say Spiller lands in a place like like Atlanta, where you can
I was gonna say Atlanta or Houston two teams that Houston needs two. That's 2 spots that could really look at running back. But we thought the same thing last year too, and Atlanta goes Mike Davis, Cordero Patterson. So I think the Falcons really
is a number 1 running back. What the?
Yeah, but those last like 4 to 6 weeks were horrible.
Oh, they were not good. I mean that's when teams kind of were figuring out what the heck they were doing and realized who he actually was.
Right. Yeah, you kind of really figured out the offense and the situation there, and I mean they didn't have anybody else to go to at that point in time either. I mean, so that's how that wound up looking. So that's 2 rounds in the book. Finishing off round 2, the Denver Broncos go Nick Benito, pass rusher from Oklahoma. Sounds about right. They need an edge rusher over there, even though they did get Randy Gregory from the Cowboys through Randy Gregory's own situation. Got the same deal from the Broncos that he was going to get from the Cowboys. He just didn't like the wording in the Cowboys contract. Oh, well. So how are you feeling? We're two rounds in. Probably going to put a little wrap to this little situation.
Put a bow
Put a bow on it. Yep. That's how we end our podcast, is putting a bow on them.
I mean, and it's happened the last couple of years, but I think the thing that gets me is really good prospects, really good guys going to teams where they can't necessarily be utilized. But I think this year you've actually seen a little bit more of that on the opposite side, where at least at the wide receiver position, guys are going to where they can be utilized. There at least at the wide receiver position with Trey McBride so far. I mean, I think he's a good spot there. But is these running backs just going to a spot where they're kind of blocked a little bit and aren't necessarily going to have the opportunity to be able to just go, again, balls to walls like they would in certain situations. So we see it every year, but I think it's going to be, especially at the wide receiver position, we're going to have a lot of depth there when it comes to wide receivers and these rookies. So
yeah, so your biggest winner from the first 2 rounds of the draft.
Oh shit! Team wise or individual?
No, individual fantasy prospect.
I mean, I think it's going to have to be. I mean, it's going to have to be a wide receiver. I mean, I think the biggest winner, starting out fantasy. Yeah, I mean, it's either Drake London or Treylon Burks. I mean, both those guys just go into situations where they're coming in and they're probably going to be the number 1 or 1A. In there is I think for both those guys is a great landing spot. I'm not saying those guys are the best, prospects down the line, but year 1 redraft leagues, I mean, those are going to probably be, a couple of your first selections.
Yeah.
What about you?
All right. I like Breece Hall. I think he was so far has been the biggest winner coming out of the draft the first 2 rounds. I think he's solidified himself as the top pick in rookie drafts.
Mm-hmm.
And
where would you put him in a redraft?
Right now, probably early to mid 4th. That's what I'm thinking now.
I would have probably said mid to late 3.
I mean, I can see it. Just depends on how the running backs are going to come off the board, because that's going to be another topic we'll probably delve into and talk a lot throughout the next few months and getting into draft season, is how the first 2 rounds of fantasy drafts are going to go for the 2022 season. Mm-hmm. So I think you're going to see a lot more wide receivers go in the first round over running backs than we've seen in years past.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is the trend that started back. Hold on. Interesting. Jacoby Dean is hurt. I was just looking at the Jets offensive line situation. You got Mekhi Becton, Laken Tomlinson, still good as far as I can remember. Connor McGovern, Elijah Vera Tucker, first round pick last year, and then George Fant. So I mean, they've got a halfway decent line. Another halfway favorite announcing the pick. Amani, I have a brain Duma. Got it. No, I mean, I mean, that's not a bad line to run. That was going to be the one concern that I would have is who is Breece Hall running behind? Holy crap! Yeah, I'm looking. I knew we had Michael Carter there. He still got Tevin Coleman and Ty Johnson, and your boy LaMichael P. Ryan.
Yeah, I think you're going to see some people dropped off of that backfield roster.
A little bit.
Trimming the fat there, so to speak.
Well, cool.
But yeah,
all right.
I mean, that's what we got, and we're 2 rounds through. We'll try to throw something else together.
Actually, may do a little live recap there next week while I'm back home in Tennessee. So
yeah, we need to throw something together there. I'm definitely going to try to get to the next few days after the fact, get to rookie rankings finalized, get into updating dynasty rankings, everything like that. I'm going to try to put together my takeaways from the NFL draft and put over on Rotoballer as well. So be on the lookout for that. So as always, definitely check everything out on rotoballer.com. Like we mentioned earlier, promo code WooFantasy for a discount at checkout. But till we see you on the next time, guys, see you again on another episode of Woo Fantasy.